All right. I want to share the top 5 things that when I hear someone say, they're red flags. So top 5 verbal red flags of doing any sort of business or relationship with.
My name's Ed. After an alarming visit to the doctor, I decided to take a new path. More travel, more experiences, and share what I learned. Welcome to the Tao of Ed.
Number 1, I work hard and I play hard. This may seem like a motivated statement, but in all of my years of this, I don't believe I've ever run across someone who says that's actually good at their job. When I hear that statement, I think of one person in particular in Silicon Valley who used to say this all the time, as he was constantly telling about his mountain biking and his hiking and climbing, and he was just awful at his job. So, I mean, I get that he played hard. I just didn't see any evidence of the work hard, or that he was very good at what he did. And that was pretty much consistent among most people that I've met that say that. They just like telling me that they're, hard players, but I'm supposed to assume because they can mountain climb, they're good at their job, but they're not. And that doesn't really come from a big surprise, actually. Number 2, don't worry. I hate when people tell me to not worry. It's just telling me they're not worried, and they're not going to worry, and they don't think that the situation is worth worrying about. I always worry, and I worry much more when someone else says don't worry. So I'd advise that to be the case all the time. Do worry. Do concern yourself with things that other people are not worried about, because if they're important to you, and by important I mean if the outcome is negative and it's going to screw you, be very concerned, because the fact is you're the one that's screwed. You can blame other people for dropping the ball, but that's about what accountability is. You have to be accountable because it affects you, and therefore you need to be the one to worry. So when someone says don't worry, you need to double down on worrying. Number 3, it's a no-brainer. This almost goes along with the no worry thing, in that if they think it's a no-brainer, and I've heard this so many times in life, do this deal, it's a no-brainer, and this no-brainer, that just means that they're not using their brain. And I don't think there's ever been a time that I've heard it's a no-brainer that I haven't immediately started digging in my mind trying to figure out where is the rub on this, and it doesn't take me long to find it. I mean, I'm not saying necessarily that someone says no-brainer means that it's a bad idea. It just means if you can't think of the things that could screw you on this, that's a concern. And I think what a really good example of this is, if you've ever read, or there was a movie, obviously a much popular movie than a book, The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, and I can't remember the guy who wrote his name. That's a shame, because he's a pretty cool dude. But he, in the beginning, the part I love most about that story is the beginning when he buys the bone scanners. And I love that part because I could see making the same mistake he made. And the mistake he made was this. He was given an opportunity to have exclusive distribution rights in the Bay Area, which is by far one of the most technical areas of the country, and also very affluent, to sell these bone scanners to doctors. And these things were superior to x-rays. And so why wouldn't doctors want these things so that they could scan their patient's bones and see what's going on and have a better idea than an x-ray? Well, as it turns out, because insurance doesn't cover a bone scan. That's a pretty big deal when you're asking people themselves to pay cash for a bone scan as opposed to a insurance-covered x-ray. Now, I don't think that's still the case. I think they cover bone scans now, but back then, when these were pretty new, they weren't covered. And I'm sure that when he was pitched this idea, he was told it was a no-brainer. I'm pretty sure he said that in the book, that it was a no-brainer. And he should have been asking himself, if it's a no-brainer, why are they using alternative distribution methods? Why are they having a bunch of people in a room at the Marriott or wherever the hell, being given this wonderful opportunity. It's because it wasn't a no-brainer. But I could totally see, especially when I was younger, making that mistake because it made sense, except that if you knew the industry, you knew it didn't. So when someone says no-brainer, you really want to put some thought into that. Number 4, work smart, not hard. This has become the mantra of the lazy. Now, I'm not against efficiency. I'm all for efficiency. Efficiency is what makes a business profitable in the end. You do something, and you do it well, and then you get efficient at it. But you notice what I said. First, you do it well. Telling me you're going to work smart by procrastinating until you can figure out a way to not put hardly any work into something, that's not working smart. That's procrastination and laziness. So I would say that don't do business with someone who tells you they're going to work smart, not hard. What that tells you is they're looking for the path of least resistance. And people who take the path of least resistance more often than not fail. Now, once you actually, I should qualify that and say they don't fail 100%, but they fail if they're doing this in the beginning. To do something well, sometimes it takes the extra work. That's why no one else is doing it this way. If you detail cars, you're going to naturally get more efficient every time you detail a car. You're going to learn, okay, I need 3 buckets in a row. I need this type of thing for my hose to go, and I need this type of application surface. I know that when I do pickup trucks, I'm going to need this type of sprayer. I mean, there's things you're going to learn as you go. If you just sit there and try to plan out to be working smarter the whole time, that has a diminishing return real quick, and you end up not working at all. So, probably best to work hard and then work smarter. So beware of someone who wants to go into business with you and tells you they're going to work smart, not hard, because that just means they're not going to work hard. Number 5, and this one is going to seem a little different because this is a little different type of personality that says it. But I want you to listen carefully on this one. I have to do what's best for my family. Now that sounds like a no-brainer statement, and no one should be able to disagree with that, right? If you tell me you have to do what's best for your family, of course you do. The problem is, why are you telling me that? I should be able to assume you're always going to do what's best for your family. And the reason people say this is because they use it to legitimize some pretty crappy actions. I've seen this throughout the years, and specifically I saw it in someone who worked for me who would say this all the time. And he would usually say it preceding telling me why we should screw someone over, why the business that I owned should do something unethical to a client or someone else for the sake of my family. But my family was fine. I don't have to do anything unethical to support my family, and neither did he really. As a matter of fact, his lack of ethics and flat out stupidity, last I heard, his kid goes to a pretty crappy school and his wife cuts hair out of the house. Nothing wrong with that. It's just way, way short of where he wanted to be and what he was when he worked for me. He was someone who was dishonest, and guess what? When he tried to stab me in the back, guess what his excuse was? He had to do what's best for his family. The difference is he didn't have to do that. What would have been best for his family would have been for us to work together and continue to find solutions together. He chose a different route and lost. That's just the way it goes when you're someone of poor ethics. I know it seems like being unethical pays off, but it doesn't in the long run. I mean, I guess hope that you hit a home run being unethical out of the gate, because people catch wind of this real quick and they stop doing business with you. So, yeah, be very careful. This person is dangerous to you if you let them in. So I have to do what's best for my family. Do what's best for your family and stay clear of that guy. All right, so there were 5 things to look out for, 5 verbal red flags before you get into business with someone or hire someone or whatever. But I want to throw a couple kind of other side of this in here, and that's things that I notice people sometimes do when they're communicating with me. And when people communicate with me, they try to sound they kind of put on the airs of being more educated than they are, or something like that, and that's fine. I understand. I do the same thing sometimes. I mean, I'm trying to impress somebody. I'll throw a big, Harvard bookshelf word out there or something. But there's a couple that stand out. Number one, stop saying literally. Very rarely do literally mean anything. So don't use the word literally, because it's kind of a red flag that you're prone to what will be in the next one, hyperbole. Don't be hyperbolic. You'll notice your most successful people avoid hyperbole. They look at it as it's a failure to manage expectations when you start being hyperbolic. When you say things like, that's the worst thing ever, it's not going to be the worst thing ever, or that's the best product ever, or this probably isn't. Try to meter your enthusiasm or your distaste to being realistic and accurate. So don't say, this is the best deal anyone's ever seen. That's not the best. It probably isn't. Just say it's a very attractive deal. So those are two things. I'll throw in a third. When you email someone, check for the word that. This is actually something that people use in copywriting, and you should definitely do it. I believe the Big Five, or Big Four now, actually train this, and that's when you shoot an email off, start trying to wean yourself out of using the word that. I don't, here's an example. I didn't know that you could do this. I didn't know that. Here's an example. I didn't know that you could go to Disney World. Just saying, I didn't know you could go to Disney World. Remove that. It's a small thing, but it reads better. And I don't notice it too much when someone sends an email, but if I see it a lot, I start to notice it. It kind of is a sign of lack of English training, which is a sign of lack of overall education. So that's a freebie. Avoid the word that. So there were my 5 red flags and 3 extra. I don't know what those were really. Just me babbling about my preference of speech. But I hope someone found it useful.